Hi, Choir Baton community. It's Beth here. I just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking of you during this time. I know so many of you are constructing lesson plans and trying to figure out how you can lead virtual choir rehearsals from afar in this unprecedented state in which we are in. There's a lot of different feelings and emotions and things tied to that. In addition to the fact that you're not used to teaching your choirs in this manner, there's that realization that not every student is equipped with the internet or technology in which to have rehearsals or even contact with their school community as well. Wanted to let you know that I'm thinking of you and I don't have all of the answers, but I do want to provide you with some resources that could potentially help you figure out how to get organized, what resources other teachers have used to develop online instruction for singers and such. And so I created a free online course just for you on the Choir Baton website. If you go there, sign up for the course. It's a 3-day course that walks you through how to compare this typical rehearsal that you are used to leading, from entering a rehearsal, grabbing materials, having a warm up, having literacy, rehearsing with scores, finishing the rehearsal and leaving, comparing all of those different aspects of a rehearsal to how you might then fit that into digital components along the way. I've tried to give you so many different resources that ideally you'll be able to pick one or two here and there that you can directly implement. And I just want to encourage you to keep it simple during this time. Remember, the way you teach virtually does not and should not be the same way someone else teaches virtually as well, and that's okay. One of the things I've been saying is that, you didn't learn to teach choir in your classroom in a day, and you won't learn to teach choir from online in a day. And I hope that you just remember that. I'm so excited for this interview that you're about to listen to, and it's oddly very timely because it is with two of the founders of one of my favorite online platforms to use in music education. I've used it with all different students and especially with choir students, and that is this online software program called Flat, and you can find it at flat.io. They've been around for several years. They are integrated with Google. They are web-based, so you don't have to download anything. You can start with a free account. I personally, after using it for a long time with the free account, decided to upgrade, and I bought lifetime access, and it was shockingly affordable because it's so powerful. I love it so much more than any other music notation software that's out there, and I can't recommend it enough. I'm going to be showing a free tutorial on the Choir Baton YouTube page and a little bit about how you can utilize this in your classroom, and your students can too if they have online access or not. Remember, we are here for you. We are here to support you. More people singing, even if it means from everyone's homes. All right? Without further ado, here's my interview with founders of Flat, Cyril and Pierre. Welcome to the Choir Baton, a podcast designed to engage with people and stories, ideas, and inspirations stemming from choir. No other art form, no sport, no hobby, no business requires a group of people to execute a communal goal with just their voices. Join me, your host, Beth Philemon, as I interview guests who are singers, teacher-conductors, instrumentalists, and community members. Together, we'll ask questions, seek understanding, and share insight from our experiences in life and in choir. Choir Baton community, I am so excited to have two special guests with you today, joining us from overseas. Unless you are listening to this overseas, and they might be with you there. But I have been a fan of Flat. I call it Flat.io. You guys call it Flat though, right?
Yeah, Flat.
Okay, Flat. A Flat for several years now, as I was looking for ways to engage students in music notation, particularly through an online format or a digital format, right? And there's so many different ones out there, and I discovered Flat. I fell in love with it, and today we are talking with the co-founders of Flat. So please welcome Cyril and Pierre with us. Welcome, guys.
Hey, guys.
Thank you.
And so we are all three in different places right now. Pierre, you're in Paris, right?
Exactly, I'm in Paris.
Yeah, and then Cyril is in Prague.
Yeah, in Czech Republic.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm first curious, how do you know each other, and where did Flat begin?
Basically, we are all students from the same French IT school called Epitech, and Flat was our final study project. Like, we had to create something innovative involving technology, and since we were all musicians, that's how we came up with this idea, and we decided to work on it.
Okay. How long ago was that?
2000. Yeah, we had to do all the technical details in 2012, and then we have been working full-time from there.
Wow. So you said you're musicians. What are your instruments?
Oh, well, let's say for me, like, I pretend to play the piano.
Hey, you don't pretend. If you can play the piano, you can play the piano.
Yeah, that's true. But it's more like a part of it's more a hobby, and I wouldn't say like I'm a professional player. Like, I was just playing from my own fun, and now I don't get that much time to play with all the work with professional life. But
Right.
yeah, I still play time to time.
All right, so piano. And then what about you, Pierre?
I'm a drummer.
Okay.
I went through the more, say, classical way through conservatory 4 years. I quit after 8 years and started in my own band for 5 years. Did rock mostly, and I was playing jazz on the side. And yeah, it was super exciting because we had to write some songs at some point, and we were struggling to share all the sheet music between each other.
Right.
So that was part of the process. A couple of years after, that came to my mind that even 4 years after we struggled back in the day, nothing has been made in that field. So yeah, I thought that could be something really cool. And yeah, that's what started the idea at the very beginning.
Yeah, awesome. So what's interesting to me, though, is that formal music notation has been it's such an important component of this. And I'm assuming that you were trained in formal music notation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the thing is, like, when we had to come up with this idea, as Cyril said, I mean, we're younger, we're young, and we're part of what we call the Google generation. And we thought at some point that what could be super cool is, what if we create the Google document but for music notation? We wanted something as easy as Google Docs did compared to Microsoft Word. And we thought, okay, so music is very complex, but you can, and notation and everything around, but we can and we have to find a way to make it easier, at least for people that know how to write it, that know music theory. And then afterward, in the second step, we have to support people that want to learn, and make their process to learn and to write music and share it even easier.
Well, you guys are doing that. I mean, it's amazing. And you touched on something that I think is what differentiates Flat so much from any other music notation software out there, and that's the integration with Google Docs. Was that something that you wanted to begin to do from the beginning?
We came up with the spirit around being really close to what Google was doing. Like, they always create a super simple to use product, very straightforward, based on collaboration and all the stuff about easiness and collaboration. And we wanted to have the same mindset about our product. Yeah, and we used Google as well, yeah, because they had so many users and there were some drawbacks on music notation. So we said, okay, so we can start there because there are so many people that use it that can benefit from Flat, and then expand.
Right.
that was both sides, both from strategic point of view and fulfilling the mission as well.
Yeah. Did you both? You said that you're both the product, and this was the product of a school project, and then that was an engineering tech school, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So was that your goal in going into technology, engineering, to integrate music into that study, or did that just kind of come back around to you through this?
Yeah, it come back to us, because of that project, thanks to that project, I would say. It was really at the beginning, to be honest, it was just about doing something cool that matters to us. When we, after 2 years, finishing the studies and as a final study project, we come up into defense. Yeah, that was a public one, so everyone in the room was super excited about the idea, what we have built. They were like, okay, how can I get access to it? Because I could use it as a personal composer, or I can share it with a teacher friend. And we were like, yeah, we can consider putting actually really online. It took us like a month because we were a bit ashamed and shy to confront to everyone what we did, what we built. And finally we did. And hopefully it started to grow really quickly, like with a lot of young composers from the US, a lot of teachers as well coming on the platform and saying, okay, so that's super exciting, guys. We need you to keep working with the product because you can really make a change in the music notation field. So we were quite impressed. And then, yeah, we gathered, the four of us, and we were like, okay, what should we do? Should we try to make a company out of it? Should we try to keep working on it and create a story on that? Here we are 4 years later now.
That's so fascinating to me. I love, and it's no surprise, right? Like I can't imagine that when you joined, it's Epitech, right?
Yep.
When you went to school there, you were thinking, I'm going to make a music notation software that's going to change the world and be used in so many different countries and really revolutionize things. And that's how these stories always work, right? Like they just kind of come to you. But really fascinating and not surprising in some ways that you did receive such great responses from people when you started really putting this together. So backing up to, so a lot of people that are listening to this use software as a service without any concept of how something like this is built and the painstaking process that goes into ultimately building the finished product that we use today. Would you mind telling a little bit of our listeners, you have this idea, are going to change software or music notation software, make it easy and intuitive for anyone. What's that next step? What does that design process really look like?
Well, I would say regarding the notation, all the music notation, we try to have a very step-by-step approach. Like at first, we decided to create like the simplest software possible. Like you could just write some notes. You didn't have any like triplets, key signature. Just have like a normal time signatures. And then like that was a product we released the first time, like the one we were ashamed of because like we're thinking, yeah, it's gonna be too little. But like the very interesting is that like people complain as they say, okay, I would like you to add this, I would like you to add this. And then because we're always in interaction with people, like we're always listening to them, answering, like we knew, okay, so we know that the next time the next things we have to do is triplets. So then we work on triplets. So that's how we try to start from something very simple and expand it bit by bit by adding stuff depending on what user needs the most. So that's how I would say how we came up with something that is very simple, but still contains, I would say, the music notation that most user needs for their regular use.
Right. What were some of the problems that you began to encounter as you started doing this? Because ultimately, at this point, you're not just being a software developer, you're a music theorist and an educator, because you're having to think in those contexts, right?
Mm.
Yeah, there is two different ways. There is the music notation focus, which Cyril does every day,
Mm-hmm.
like talking to people, answering, gathering information about how they would use it compared to much more professional software on the market as well, because they have been around for so many years that they have, obviously have better idea of what they are doing. So we inspire ourselves based on what they do as well. And there is the education side, which I spend much more time on, like talking a lot with teachers, uh, what they struggle on, being in many different conferences in the US, talking with them, not to sell the product itself, like as a salesman, but much more to focus on the product and the pain points they have to help them turn to tech and improve the class time as well with the students,
Sure.
because thanks to tech, students are much more engaged to music because they can interact, they can hear straight what they're creating.
Right.
Flat is super intuitive, so they can experiment. But then how the teacher don't lose time learning how to use a product, how they can introduce super easily a curriculum without losing many time because they don't have much free time left because they already do a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all part of the process of focus on the education side. So we started through the Google integration, that helped at the beginning teachers to save time on through the synchronization, that kind of stuff. And now I'm focused much more on the education, the proper education field. Like, okay, so there is so many different music theory steps you want to teach, and we're here to help you save time setting up courses, resources with your students. And we want just to give you all the resources to focus on the interaction and the teaching time instead
Right.
of just setting up things.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you work a lot with US teachers. What is the proportion of users globally that you interact with?
Like we have more than 50% of our teacher community, which is based in the US.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys were really the first one starting to use Flat, mostly through Chromebooks.
Mostly through what?
All the Chromebooks from
Oh,
Google.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, now we also have a growing community in South America as well. And it's growing pretty much everywhere. Like every country that goes one-to-one device is growing faster. And also just countries that get back more budgets on music education, they are turning to tech automatically, and they're looking for options, affordable options. And the tech coordinator teachers, they're also really looking at how they won't waste time setting up a whole infrastructure to teach music.
Interesting. You mentioned that you're talking with teachers about a lot of problems that they have in the classroom, and it's refreshing to hear how in tune you are with that, and with what classroom teachers are experiencing. I'm curious, what are some of those themes, though, aside from like time or that teachers are having wanting to utilize technology in the classroom? What are some other themes that you are hearing from teachers that are attempting or that are teaching music in the classroom?
I think there is two different main themes. The first one is like, as I mentioned, learning a new tool and imagine and create entire curriculum around that tools. And they're scared to moving forward to new tool because they know that if they move to a new tool, they have to build from scratch again, even if they find a new tool. And that's the very first thing we encountered. We had super exciting teacher about that, and they were like, okay, no, but I can't come because otherwise I would have to create again everything I did on as a software, everything I did on paper. And they were like really into the product. They're really scared to spend again a lot of time building resources. So we started, and then even if they move forward, they have to figure the product really well to understand how it works, and then imagine new ways to build around it.
Right.
So that's what we focus on right now. It's like really this theme that is like, okay, so we need to help them just, I mean, there is many different ways to teach the same knowledge, but we can help them just to have the basics and then just top up and add things about how they prefer to do. But if we come up with a library of resources, of really basics, they can just build on top of it. And then around music, there is also band, there is music theory, there is just initiation. So those are also different approach around how they could use the tool. And that's something we have to improve. Like, okay, so you are dance director, so you don't really care about giving assignment about music theory, but you want to save a lot of time on distribute this, how to spread to every student which part they have to train on, they have to practice. If you want to put some feedback and annotation, you won't have to print again. So that's all the things you can already do with Flat, but teacher they're like, we have to explain it much better,
Right.
because they got put it in front of them, and then they understand, they know how to use it straight away.
Well, and that's a big thing. I mean, like, I can't imagine how much of a hurdle that is, because also you are encountering these sets of teachers, generally speaking, teachers that are entrenched in the way we've always done it, and I want to write it out, or teachers that don't teach notation or don't teach notation well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's that too. A quarter note does not equal the beat. A quarter note can equal the beat, but it does not always equal the beat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's teachers out there that teach that way. But then you also come against this new wave of music education. Well, it's not new. It's been around since the age of recording. But why do I need to learn music notation? Do you encounter any of that, or like pushback from community of fear of like, well, I can just record it. Why do I have to know how to read it? I know the importance of it. You know the importance of it, right?
Yeah.
But how do you come up against that, and how do you combat that?
Yeah, I mean, there is already tons of really great written article about how great it is for kids to at least give them an initiation around music notation for the brain, for the cognitive, all that kind of stuff. So many different studies and great articles accessible for everyone. So for a time, we were like pushing these arguments to teacher considering, or school considering to put back music education into it. But what we noticed is they were already aware of that. And it was just more about a matter of time, of budgets, and there is nothing much we can do about it. So instead of investing a lot of money on the sales side to convince them to buy the product, we thought it would be much more important for us to focus with people already using it, learning from them how we can improve the product to make it even better when they get the money, or they get the teacher, or they finally got a big enough class to justify having music education in the school.
They get excited about it and start doing podcasts with you and sending out different things. But I think that's such an important model, in business, right? But also our choirs, our bands, our orchestras, etc., I believe are business models, and we have got to be more intentional about learning from each other within that context. But that's a great example, right? Like realizing that you can't sell them on something that they're already sold on, but not putting their money into, but instead people want success. And if you can build a successful product, that success will just continue to build on each other.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and we choose to keep the product really affordable in terms of price as well. So, you know.
Yeah, how are you making money? What is this? It's insanely profitable. When I saw that I could get a lifetime use for like under $200, I was like, I'm doing this before they start to increase it.
I mean, for both sides of the product and the business plan, it's working very well, and we do make money out of it. We just cut everything we thought wasn't important in the process to sell to people, and we only focus on the product. We don't invest in marketing. We don't invest on sales. We only invest on making the product better, talking with everyone, which is directly or indirectly exciting and important, the product, which is when the community is growing, as Cyril mentioned, you can talk with 10 people, then you can talk with 100. It always gives you a straight roadmap and guidelines to do great for them. And it costs nothing except just emails and a bit of time. Right. Instead of running really big market studies or whatever studies you can call. Yeah, so by cutting every piece, every extra money you don't need to invest, we can make something really affordable for pretty much everyone that cannot afford a professional and that don't need a professional tool, both on the education side and the individual product we have.
Yeah, I'm a fan, and it makes it easy to talk about Flat to other people and just impress upon the importance of how easy it is to integrate and how easy it is to afford, because I purchased Flat when I was a classroom teacher. I don't have an expense account that I am, putting on a company credit card as are other teachers. And the sheer fact that I was able to create Flat accounts for all of my students for free. And another great component too, I just want to share with our listeners is that in Flat, once you create a document or a student can create a document, then you can share it with each other and go in and edit. There's so many other different cool things that you can do within that because of the functionality that you guys have increased. I'm curious though about how you begin to, you're linking with Soundtrap.
Yep.
So 2 different companies, yes?
Yep, definitely.
And then because if you're unfamiliar with Soundtrap, and to be honest, it's been a year or so since I've really dug in deep with that software, but it's recording based, yes?
Yeah, it's recording on a digital workstation, basically.
Right. So what was that integration about? Is just kind of developed naturally, or how do you envision Soundtrap helping Flat and Flat helping Soundtrap?
It was mostly driven by our both education community.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had teachers that were playing with MIDI with their student, and at some point they felt like, okay, so that would be great if we can put it back on a composition and music notation. And they were like, okay, so we cannot and we won't develop a complete different software just for that purpose. And because we are both a European company, we have met a couple of times before, so we started to mention, and we had the same issue on our side. Like they had kids composing, and at some point they wanted to add more effect, more advanced sound around it, which is not our main focus.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it came like to conclusion that
Right.
It would be great for both of us to just had a simple and straightforward way to synchronize between each product super easily.
So really for Flat, the goal is for Soundtrap users to make music and then see how it fits into the notation space.
Yeah, exactly.
More so than the opposite.
Have the proper music notation out of it.
A
recorded MIDI composition.
Right. How has that response been?
Always it depends from whoever is using the product. So some were not interested in it because they just wanted to focus on music notation. But for a teacher, they were super considering the back and forth between the two products. They were super excited about it. So yeah.
Cool. So Cyril, you were talking that you started off when you're doing the coding for all of this. Do both of you do the coding, or is it just Cyril?
No, we both. I would say we both do, but we work on different parts of the software.
Okay. You started just with basic notation, and now, there's so much functionality to utilizing Flat.io, even down to, a slider to adjust the spacing of the systems, the spacing of the measures, and things like that. I thank you first and foremost to both of you. I think that's just such a really cool. I'm trying not to swear because I'm so excited and I don't want to have to put like an explicit thing on this, but it's just like a really freaking cool way to showcase a lot of different things. You can, like, just with a simple click of a button, number all of your measures, none of your measures, just beginnings of the systems of your measures, etc. What is a function about Flatio or Flat that's like one of your favorite things?
You mean the one we have developed?
Yeah, the Flat that you have now, because I guess you guys started this as the school project in 2012, and now 7 years later, like it's a game changer. I'm sure it looks probably totally different, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but I would say the functionality I had the most fun working on was the transposition system, because like I had learned some music theory when I was learning the piano, but most of my knowledge I had on music theory was with my work with on Flat, and I think it was from a very interesting point of view, because since I had to do the programming for all the music theory, like I had like a very logical and mathematical approach on the music theory. So like for instance, like there are tables on how to do the transpositions.
Right.
And in a sense, what you can do is that you just take like the major scale, like the tone, semitone, tone, semitones, and then from here you can derive all the transposition possible. And like I think it was very exciting, take over like the hard coded part is very small, just the scale, and from it you derived everything else. And I think that was very interesting. Like I really had a lot of fun working on this part.
That's very cool. I love that you love transpositions, because that is oftentimes other people's things as well. So which is harder, learning to code or learning music theory?
I think.
I mean, we already knew music theory. I think the most hardest part was to mix that both.
Right.
Because we are a web-based music notation. So doing music notation in a web context has been the biggest challenge we had, because we want to mix up the complexity and the simplicity in the product in a really restrictive tech environment, which is a web browser. So, and when you go down to Chromebooks, which are powerless device, and you have even more, you struggle even more to make an efficient and powerful application in that environment and context. So I would say that it's more about mixing up both and doing something great out of it.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit to the process of building this. So started in 2012, basic notation. When did you graduate from is it a university or more just kind of like a trade? Epitech is just
that was university, so we graduated in 2014.
All right, so you graduated in 2014. People have said you've got something here with Flat. You go full time into working on Flat, or were you doing some other things as well, or diving first in?
No, we terminated on full-time contract because we all went for a job at that time. Yeah, from there we started talking. Should we go? Should we go for it all in or not? Or should we just keep it doing it at the night and during weekend? We were like the four of us. We were considering all the different options we had.
Right. Because I can't imagine, like, this is a very lucrative potential venture when you're right out of school and wanting to, like, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I can only imagine the internal struggle.
Yeah, and we were scared as well because we were only developers, so we knew how to build the product, but how to do a good, profitable business wasn't something we were confident with, because we had never been taught that. So yeah, it took us nearly 6 months to decide. Yeah, by the very beginning, like February 2015, we said, okay, so we just start over. We already learned so many things about how to code that thing, which paging we should follow, which we shouldn't. So we started over until the summer. By the summer, we were like out of cash. So we said, okay, so we know that there is many teachers that would love to use and pay for the product. We know that we have a growing community of composers from the US. So we take the summer, we gather all of the four of us in a garage. We work for 2 months full time, and we see what comes out of it. We came up with the partnership with Google. We came up with the new Flatio education product. We came up with a new individual product, and a lot of exciting and engagement around all this release. So we say, okay, so we should just create a company and see where it goes. Again, here we are.
Now I can't imagine, just like any music group, there's four of you, right, that were in this, that it was all roses and happiness and everyone worked together so well in this, right? Just like any kind of group of people, especially in music, when there's an emotion attached to it, and especially in a product building space when there's emotion attached to it as well. What were some of those struggles? How did you work through those creative differences?
Like being different people, or
or different. I mean, you want to go one way on something, and Cyril wants to go another way, or this and the. I mean, you guys all have to have some sort of like fire under your seat to even pursue this, which means you have your own ideas and passions about how something should look or work, and just by the theory of working with other people, that's never all going to line up.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we were sure about is that we wanted to do flat.
Right.
From there, we started like, why, for example, why we are a distributed company, because none of us were capable of, we couldn't agree on only one city. Like we were all defending a different point, and we were saying like, no, we don't want to go to Paris, it's too expensive. And I was saying, no, I don't want to do countryside in a very small town because I will get bored in less than a month.
You're a city person? Is that what you're saying? Is that I'm hearing?
No, I mean for myself at least, yeah, I am.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So yeah, and we were like, okay, so the only thing we could agree is we won't live in the same city, and we will build a remote company. And it all started from there. And then because we knew each other for so long, at least 5 years. So we were like, we knew each other's strengths and drawbacks. And we were like, okay, so Cyril, you're pretty good with that, so you should focus on that, and we will have no say against what you believe in on that topic. That was pretty much the same, and everything went so naturally that there were no it's up around a specific topic. We were like, okay, so everything is getting in place. It's really cool to see that we all look in the same way around the product. And then because of moving forward around that product, we should build our own life on the side and stay aligned about what we want to achieve on that company.
That's a huge testament to, I think, why Flat has been successful and will continue to be so. And regardless of whether you're in tech, music, or any space, getting to know someone well enough to know their strengths and weaknesses, and then trusting them on their strengths, is just a really great life lesson.
Yeah. And that's why we keep confidence in how we can achieve and how far we can push that product and that company, is because like we keep working even better together,
right?
Because we were learning from each other, and we learned to accept positive and negative feedback, but they're always meant to improve a person, not like just to be selfish or what. Just always a feedback to improve the way you work, the way you do things, in always align with the company itself. We learn not to take it personally, but just take it, think about it, yeah, improve yourself if you need to.
Right. That's huge. Well, and I can be a big testament to the fact that you guys, as a consumer, I've seen that firsthand, not just in how I've interacted with you bits and pieces through social media in the past year, but then also just in my conversations recently with Cyril and this new beta launch of utilizing Kodai notation within music and utilizing hand signs to show that. I think that is something that I'm really excited about, as we have a lot of learners in the States that we know a kinesthetic approach to learning music is helpful, and I utilize the Kodai hand signs, or the Kerwin hand signs, as they're also related to as times two. And that's such an effective teaching tool. And so then to be able to show that application in a notation software like Flat is really cool. Now this is and this is a testament too of how open to feedback you are, because I saw the email come out. You guys are great about letting customers know what's coming up and what's new, and I love every time I see an email from you. Began to fiddle around with it and realized, oh wait, like I can't, when I change keys, and Cyril and I are still talking about this, but like when I change keys, that will change the solfege pitches at times, and realizing, wait, in the US, I use a movable DOE system versus outside of the US, everyone use a fixed DOE system. And just the conversations that we're already beginning to have about that, how responsive you guys have been, how open you've been to learning, that has been really, really cool and exciting. So again, I'm just testifying that you guys are like that, and you are open to hearing ideas and thoughts and how you can make the product better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, it was an interesting part is the creation process. Like sometimes, for instance, when I was creating a design for a new notation, like I had a hard time explaining how to use it to my colleagues, and all the time we were thinking, okay, like if I have a hard time explaining it, like I'm wrong. Like it's not them we are wrong. Like I'm wrong. So I need to think it to make it easier. So that's like we have applied this process to ourselves, and we also have applied this process with the user. Like if the user complains, usually it's not like we have to explain something to them. It's like no, we are wrong. We need to think that better.
So is agile a phrase in France, or in Europe, this agile working of building online products?
I would call that the complaint-driven development.
Wait, say the complaint what?
Complaint-driven development.
Yes, but that's I'm in an area in the US that tech is a huge, like in the Raleigh area, tech is massive. And I sat in on a presentation of the iteration of online products recently, and it talked about this agile framework, which I think Flat is the exact example of, through what you're saying, that complaint-driven process as well. You start small, like the picture they used was so many times people want to build a car, and so they start with the wheel, and then the axle, and the frame, and then the engine, and all this way, and then you have a car at the end, because it'll take you from point A to point B, versus an agile framework of saying you want to get from point A to point B, so you start by walking, and then once you get that down, then you like get a skateboard, and then like maybe you get a razor or one of those you know what I'm talking about, like a scooter, there we go. And then you get a bike, and then you get a car. And I think and that is what we're seeing in software development more and more clearly, what Flat operates under, that mindset.
That's how we have operate for so many notations. Like for instance, if you take the jazz chords, at first you could only input the normal chords, then you could put alterations, then you could put the bass inversion. So all the time we add something new. Like we want to we don't want to do everything at once. Like we start small, get users to test it, and then we build upon it. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's something that for the listeners to really consider bringing that mindset into your rehearsal space and into your performance space so many times. And I'm curious as like your experience as musicians yourselves, and then as consumers of musicians and their work and working with musicians, you see oftentimes we are driven by developing this perfect product, and that has to be perfect. And we're so end result minded that we forget about the process, and we forget to start small and to focus on making that first step really good, so that then you can build on it and build on it. Whether it's letting someone into your rehearsal process and letting them hear you mess up playing this thing the first time, and then getting the opportunity for them to experience you growing in it. Don't you think that's an interesting parallel of, and do you see that happen with the musicians that you're working with, maybe your own personal lives as a musician, that temptation to be product driven versus process?
Yeah, I mean, you can do both way, but in following the fact, it's much more, as a musician, it's much more about like, okay, it's better, and I talk like as a whole former band drummer. When we were creating music, not just performing something we already known, we were always starting easy, and then we were complexifying around to make a great sound. Sometimes it was just a roll on the drums, sometimes it was just a theme on the guitar, a riff, but we were starting from there, and then we were, okay, so what could we simply add on that? And then you get to know it perfectly on the simple way. And then when you're live or when you want to record it, you go a bit free, and you put more fashion and freestyle around it, and it does something very well.
Right.
And that's how we used to do, at least in my band, and I completely get the parallel.
Yeah, but I think that's something as educators we struggle with, is finding, just like the educators that you were speaking of earlier, that they go, I don't know how to do this, and how would I do this, and how would I teach that, and just saying, hey, like, let's start small. And in fact, I don't know if this will help you. One thing that I love to use Flat when I was in a classroom of 40 kids and introducing it, is that I would give them a piece of music that we were singing, and I would just have them copy the notation, like their line that they're singing, I would have them copy it into Flat. Right? Because then I'm able to see, wait, is what I think they're singing what they actually should be singing? Because choral notation, right, is crazy, because you are having to do stem direction, right? Like, and if you have part crossing, the soprano part is usually above the alto part, and then they might switch for a second. You've got to change the stems within that, and not all the time young singers see that. So I have been able to utilize Flat and say, hey, student X, put your part into Flat, and then they are getting, I can see that they know what the title is, where to put a composer in, how to do the key signature, how to do a time signature, and then match up the notes and make sure they're singing the right part. And then the beauty of how you guys have done this is, A, they can print it out, B, they can make a copy of it. Now it's kind of illegal, but right, to like copy someone's work. We won't share that. But in theory, you know, they take some ownership of it. And then the other cool component that you have is the ability to export it as an MP3 or MIDI.
Yeah.
And then they have their own part track. And then the student has done their own part track for themselves, right? Which is a big thing in choir. Play it for me so I can sing it. There's pros and cons to that. But by utilizing Flat, that's less work on the teacher. But more, it is less work on the teacher, which I'm not saying you should do it for less work on the teacher, but it's less work on the teacher because you're putting more responsibility on the student, and they're making more music. So it's a little tip. That's one little selling point for you there as you go and talk with teachers. But it was shocking to me how much I assumed students knew to put in the notation. And when I began utilizing Flat, how much I learned from it.
Yes, I think it's a very nice part of the learning process when the students really own their part, like when they write it themselves, like they they invest more themselves into the part. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you guys are, again, continuing to ideate you have like boom whacker notation in there, working on your jazz notation, this inclusion of Kodai, etc. Is all of that coming just from listening to your customers and not even doing research on your research is listening to their feedback, or do you do some research yourselves outside of
No,
what your customers say?
like to be honest, for example, for the Kodai notation, I was like one teacher reaching out to us saying, okay, I love the product, but to use it properly, we are like a Kodai driven pedagogy
Mm-hmm.
school. And I was like, okay, what is it that? Because
Right.
I didn't know about it at all.
Yeah.
So I spent probably 3 hours just going through the web, reading about it, because that was definitely something I didn't know at all. And I thought, okay, that's super cool. And there is definitely many teachers that could benefit from it. So we should consider how we can implement that in the product, because that could be super helpful to so many. So advised Cyril to do the same through the web. I only kept some link for him to save the time and the hassle. And yeah, I shared to him. He went through as well. We talked about it. We say, okay, so we're gonna do some talks and call with the teacher that were asking for it. And we started to talk with them, and we said, okay, so now we have a good idea and how they would use it. So we will implement what we understood from them. Several did, I didn't do. And then, yeah, when it was available, we reached out to the teacher saying, okay, that's available. You can try it, and we are really looking forward for your feedback.
Yeah.
They were all engaged to that, and they did feedback, and we did some change, as Cyril did with you, if I recall right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was for example, for the there was that the boom whacker was pretty much the same, like
Right.
with elementary teacher mostly. They were like, okay, so we are using the boom whacker technology, and it would be so helpful for us to have a way to incorporate it in what we do at Flat. And we were, okay, so we checked it out and we understood how it works, and we say, okay, we can definitely do something around it. And so we did, released it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, I thank you because it's really cool. And I know sometimes you only work with certain people in developing that and don't realize, or you don't have an specific understanding. I'm sure you have an understanding, but it's hard to fully know the impact that has on the community because you don't speak to everyone. So on behalf of those people, let me say thank you. But because the effects are incredibly far reaching. Well, guys, I just want to close with just a couple of things. Cyril talked about what one of his favorite things was in the development of Flat and continued development. What about you, Pierre?
I was really into, like, I mean, I studied at them, being a developer and focusing on the product. It was super exciting during a time, but what I love the most is when at some point I had to step up and move from the developer position to a more management and business position. It was super exciting to get to learn so many new things, to be able to handle and manage correctly what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So it was super exciting about that. And then I started to discover everything about the education scene,
Right.
the learning thing, all around sheet music, the entire sheet music industry.
Yeah.
Not just learning education, the entire thing around. As long as you have a paper, sheet music paper, you have an opportunity for us. So it was super exciting to learn about all of that. That's what I love the most when we start through all the 4 past years, discovering all those new things and new opportunities was super exciting for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What is next for Flat? I know you just rolled out the Kodai notation. Is there anything else that you have up your sleeve coming out for us that people can be watching for?
Yeah, main focus for us right now is the education product.
Right.
As I mentioned, like through the past 2 years, we learned a lot from all the teachers, from the growing community of teachers we have. So we know that we did great with the Microsoft, Google, Canvas integration to help them save a lot of time, but now we have to focus on as I said, making something super easy to use with much more resources to start super easily with students. Erase the fear of losing time or not being able to handle a new tool.
Right, right.
So that's what we all focus on right now, and that's definitely what the next big update we're gonna do.
Awesome.
I hope really soon, probably a month and a half max. And yeah, that will be the very big next big thing we will do pretty much for the education product. Yeah.
And notation wise, I'm working on the fret diagrams for guitar chords.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Awesome. That is awesome. Well, I am so grateful to you guys for being on the Choir Baton podcast today. I'm excited for listeners, if they have not checked out Flat.io, to go and check it out today. I mean, it's free to sign up, but I really encourage you to sign up for that one-time use fee. I mean, and this one-time use fee and because it's a web-based notation system, it also includes all your upgrades. You're not having to like a Finale constantly upgrade to the next thing of Finale, or I was a Finale user before this, or I don't know, there's Sibelius or MuseScore and all these other different platforms. That alone is a selling point for me on Flat, is the price point and the upgrade, how easy. I mean, you don't have to upgrade it, right? You just open it and the upgrades are there, combined with how it integrates into Google Docs is a game changer as we continue as musicians to really figure out how we can teach students to really understand what's happening from a notation standpoint. And again, listeners, I just want to encourage you. I will have my online class that will be launching within the next couple of weeks that talks about utilizing music notation and teaching it from the very second students walk into your rehearsal. And I have utilized Flat in further stages of using my process of teaching music literacy, and it works seamlessly. Here's just another plug for how cool it is when you set up Flat in your browser and you bring up and you pick your and you pick, how you want it to be displayed. If you want soprano, alto, tenor, bass, or you just want piano, or you just want a vocal line, or you want an ooh or an ah, or anything like that. Once you select your time signature, what's really a game changer, and guys, I don't know if you did this intentionally or not, but like, when I saw this years ago, this is what sold me too on it, is that it automatically brings up the rests within the measures. So let's just say I'm in 4/4, which I hate using as a reference, but whatever. Let's say I'm in 4/4, and you bring up Flat. It will show you 4 quarter note rests within there. And once you begin to pick the beat and beat division within that, it shows how that breaks apart in the score. So a student can physically see how if you have a quarter note rest and you click on an 8th note and you click on that, it will automatically split that. And I'll try to have some videos for you as well to see what I'm talking about. But I literally saw light bulbs happen, y'all, in people's faces and students' faces when they saw this happen on the notation that you built. I know I said I was done with questions, but that's my last one. Was that intentional in how you designed it that way?
Yeah, it was intentional. Like, right, we wanted to enforce the time signature to help with the teaching process. So we were thinking, like, we wanted to have a score that was all the time correct. Like when you make a change, you always go to another correct state. Like, you cannot do something wrong. That was our main idea.
You cannot. That should be your tagline. You cannot do something wrong. Like hashtag flat hashtag you cannot do something wrong. Or maybe I'll just steal it because that's really great, and it speaks to music creation in and of itself, and it clearly speaks to the process that y'all have adapted at Flat. Do you have any closing thoughts or remarks for the Choir Baton community, guys?
I mean, like, would be super pleased to welcome new users on the platform and learn from them and keep improving the product with them. So anyone that wants to join the platform are very welcome, and Cyril or me or anyone in the team would be super pleased to hear from them anytime if they have any questions. Just like platform even there.
Awesome. Cyril, anything? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I would say, and like if you have any invitation you would like us to add or any ideas, like always reach us. We always answer, and yeah, be sure we're always working hard to improve the platform. Like for instance, like with the code annotation, like we are discussing right now with Beth about how to improve it, like about the movable doors. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and go listeners and check out Flat.io, or it's flat.io is the web address, but it's Flat.
Thanks.
Thank you, Beth.
All right. Thanks so much for listening to the Choir Baton podcast, listeners. If you have not done so yet, a couple things. One, it would mean the world to me and to other people that are looking for choir podcasts to listen to if you would rate and leave us a little review if you're listening to us via iTunes about the podcast. We'd love a 5-star review. We'd love a sentence or so about what you liked, either about this episode or other episodes. It just really helps me know what you like, and it also helps other people know what other people are finding interesting about this podcast as well. There's so many great ones out there, and it's not to detract or deter from any of those, but just helps us share with others what's unique about the Choir Baton podcast. Another reminder, the free online course for teaching choir amidst COVID is out right now, and I would love for you to go there, check it out, and check out the platform, because Choir Baton is growing, and part of that is online courses and professional development that we've begun delivering to the choir community, and we're only going to continue to do more of that. So this is a great opportunity for you to jump on, see what it's all about, see what you like about it, and hang out with us there. It's such a great way to be a part of community, particularly with what our country and with what our world are going through as well. If you have not done so already, make sure that you're a part of our email list. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. And more than anything, make sure that you're getting more people singing.